I'm Brenda Miller, a woman of 58 years, living a quiet and comfortable life here in Maplewood, New Jersey. My days are usually filled with the simple pleasures of tending to my garden, volunteering at the local library, and enjoying long walks with my husband Tom. Our son David is grown now with a wonderful career and a good heart, and our home always felt like a warm hub for our extended family. Our door was always open for Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations, and impromptu coffee chats. Family meant everything to me. It was the bedrock of our lives, and I cherished every single of them, especially Tom's sweet mother Eleanor, who at 84 was the matriarch. We all adored her gentle spirit and knowing smile were a constant source of comfort and guidance. And I truly believed that nothing could ever really break the bonds we shared. That was until Deirdre, Tom's sister, came along and decided to shatter it all into a million pieces. Deirdre had always been a bit dramatic, a little self-centered, but for the most part we all tolerated her quirks, seeing them as just part of her unique personality. But something shifted a couple of years ago. It was as if a dark cloud descended over her and she began to change in ways none of us could have imagined. She started picking fights with Tom and his other brother Robert over trivial things. Then she escalated it to outright accusations of disrespect and neglect against her own mother. It was bewildering and frankly terrifying to witness this transformation. She became a storm of anger and resentment, turning everyone against each other slowly. But surely she isolated herself and her 4 adult children, her 3 grandchildren, and even their spouses from the entire family circle. She explicitly told her children not to have any contact with their grandmother Eleanor or with any of their cousins, aunts, and uncles. It was a brutal 2 years of unanswered calls, ignored invitations. Gaping hole where our family used to be. What started as a few arguments turned into a full-blown war, a war that no one else wanted to fight. And I was left feeling so utterly heartbroken and confused by it all. We all suspected it was about money. Deirdre always had an eye for what she thought she was owed, but there was also this nagging feeling that maybe something deeper was wrong, perhaps a brain tumor, as Robert suggested in hushed tones. But whatever the reason, the outcome was the same. Our beautiful family was fractured, and Eleanor was suffering terribly, losing the closeness of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We tried everything. Tom and Robert made countless attempts to reach out to Deirdre, calling her, sending polite messages, even showing up at her door with peace offerings of homemade cookies and flowers. I myself wrote heartfelt letters pleading with her to reconsider for Eleanor's sake, reminding her of the joy we all once shared at family gatherings. I tried to call her children even though they were adults, thinking perhaps they would listen to reason and see the pain their grandmother was enduring, but every effort was met with a cold shoulder, or worse, a venomous verbal attack. Deirdre would hang up on us mid-sentence or send back scathing texts accusing us of meddling and being manipulative. Her children, indoctrinated by her bitterness, would return our calls unanswered or send curt messages stating they were simply respecting their mother's wishes. It was like trying to talk to a brick wall coated in ice. Each attempt to mend the family fabric only seemed to tighten Deirdre's grip on her family, making the division wider. The problem wasn't getting solved, it was growing bigger and more painful by the day. The first Christmas without Deirdre and her family was a heavy silence in our usually boisterous home. Eleanor tried to put on a brave face, but her eyes held a profound sadness that pierced my heart. She just sat there watching the empty chairs. Her usual festive spirit dimmed. A few months later, her 85th birthday came around, and again it was just a small gathering, a stark contrast to the large, lively parties we always used to throw for her. The joy had been sucked out of these important milestones. I felt a deep ache in my chest seeing Eleanor suffer so much despite all our love and support. The absence of Deirdre's branch of the family was a gaping wound that refused to heal. I felt a growing sense of hopelessness, a crushing weight that no matter what we did, no matter how hard we tried, this family might truly be broken beyond repair. There was nothing more we could do or say to change Deirdre's mind, and the thought that Eleanor might leave us without ever experiencing the warmth of a full family gathering again was a truly devastating prospect. It felt like we had lost not just Deirdre, but a part of our own souls in the process. It was during this time of deep despair that Eleanor quietly called me over for a private chat one afternoon. As we sat in her sunlit living room, her hand gently resting on mine, she explained her decision. She had a lump sum of money she wished to distribute among her descendants, a final gift to ensure everyone was provided, for she had carefully written out checks for each family unit to be divided amongst the individual members within them. And she explained to me the rationale that each children and their direct descendants would receive an equal share of the overall fund, but then that share would be further divided by the number of people in that particular family unit. It was a fair and straightforward approach, ensuring that the money was split equally by person, not by family branch, so that each grandchild and great-grandchild received a portion. She handed me an envelope containing our share, the checks neatly tucked inside, one for Tom, one for David, and one for me. My mind raced. Thought about the numbers. Tom and I had one son, David, so our family unit consisted of 3 people, Tom, Robert, and I received an equal third of the initial sum. Then our third was split by 3, giving each of us a substantial amount. Robert's family had 3 children and 1 grandchild, so their family unit was made up of 5 individuals, meaning their portion would be divided by 5. And then I thought of Deirdre. She had 4 adult children, 3 grandchildren, and their spouses, bringing her family unit to a grand total of 11 people. And suddenly a small spark of something that wasn't sadness flickered within me. I could almost feel the precise moment Deirdre would open that envelope, do the math, and realize the crushing truth: the 2 siblings she had so cruelly stabbed in the back, Tom and Robert, and the two wives she so disdained, including me, would each receive significantly more per person than she or any single member of her vast family, which she would get a sliver for each of her 11 people, while Tom, David, and I would receive a much larger, more generous portion. I tried to keep a straight face as Eleanor explained everything, but inside I was doing a victory dance. It wasn't about the money for me, not truly, but it was about the poetic justice of it all. Deirdre had isolated herself and her family, supposedly to gain some perceived advantage or out of a bitter sense of entitlement. And now that very decision to keep her family so large and expansive, in contrast to our smaller one, would mean she received significantly less than what she might have expected or even demanded if she had remained part of the fold. I imagined the look on her face when she saw the numbers, when she realized that her supposed enemies had somehow won this silent financial battle, the very blood family she championed, but then alienated, had delivered this stunning, accidental blow. It was the universe's way of balancing the scales, a quiet, subtle revenge that I had no part in planning but relished nonetheless. The checks were distributed a few weeks later in the mail, quietly and without fanfare, and though Deirdre never contacted us directly about it, the silence from her end was more telling than any angry phone call could have been. We never heard another word about the money from her side, which confirmed to me that she had indeed done the math and understood the unintended consequences of her actions. In the wake of this distribution, a new normal began to settle in our lives. The void left by Deirdre's family was still present, but it no longer felt like a gaping wound. Instead, it was more like a scar, a reminder of what was lost, but also a testament to our resilience. Eleanor, bless her heart, seemed to find a measure of peace in knowing her affairs were in order and that her love, expressed through her final gifts, had reached those who appreciated it most. Our family, though smaller, grew even closer. Tom, David, and I made new traditions. We held smaller, more intimate gatherings filled with genuine warmth and laughter. We visited Eleanor more often, ensuring her golden years were filled with comfort and love, not the pain of estrangement. I had come to terms with the fact that some relationships are simply not meant to be mended, but also that true family connection runs deeper than blood. Sometimes it's about the people who show up, who stay, who love you unconditionally. And then, a few months later, as I was helping Eleanor sort through some old photographs one afternoon, she pulled out a worn photo of Deirdre as a young girl, smiling brightly beside a much younger Tom and Robert. She looked at the picture with a wistful expression, and then she turned to me, her eyes twinkling with a knowing mischievousness that belied her gentle demeanor. "Brenda," she said softly, almost a whisper, "I always believed in fairness. You know, and sometimes fairness has a way of finding its own path, even when we don't plan for it." She gave me a sly wink and a small, almost imperceptible smile, a smile that spoke volumes, and in that moment I realized the accidental revenge wasn't so accidental after all. Eleanor, my sweet, gentle Eleanor, had known exactly what she was doing all along.